So I think a lot of people can agree with me when I say this. Onision is one of those individuals who ultimately is one of the biggest people who can't grasp reality. And no offense, but he is truly incapable of being self-aware. Not to mention when there are times where a situation comes up, he spins it to the point where he feels he's right in that situation, or if something doesn't go his way in said situation, he then tries to spin it in a way so that other people are at fault. Or, to put it bluntly, that people who also talk about the issue are incompetent. About a couple days ago, Onision made a video titled, "People Are Really Mad at Me," which, first off, I want to mention the irony of that title. First off, either he doesn't understand why people are mad at him, or is too incompetent to realize why people are mad at him. Or, let's face it, doesn't want to accept responsibility for the actions that he has committed towards people, as well as with what he's said or done throughout, let's say, the 11 to 12 years he's been on YouTube. But going, or at least sticking with the topic at hand when it comes to this particular video, he discusses a response he made towards the assault rifle ban in New Zealand. I should mention that I have my own thoughts on the issue, but unfortunately that's a topic for another day. For this particular video, I actually kind of wanted to go over a lot of the stuff that, or at least a few things, that Onision did in this particular video when it comes to the response he made. Though I guess I should quickly go over the basic thing that he does in this particular video. Onision ends up reading responses towards people who did not like the post he made on Twitter, pretty much saying that real men don't need assault rifles. And let's be honest here. A lot of the responses that have been picked for this particular response video that Onision did, seems they were kind of cherry-picked to the point where the responses themselves just sound like kind of jokes, for some of them anyway. It just seems like they're screwing with Onision when it comes to his post. I mean, let's face it, Onision is, at this point, a practical joke when it comes to social media. But with some of the quote-unquote screenshots that he uses, he doesn't even read them correctly, or if he did, he used the wrong ones. For example, there was one at the beginning where he says that the person was talking about using short bursts for guns, and he made this joke about how the individual, when it comes to you using short bursts, and you may be in a church when this is happening to you, blah, blah, blah. But the screenshot used in the video itself doesn't even mention anything about assault rifles with short bursts or whatever. The only crime that this quote-unquote person said in his tweet or post was that possibly feminizing men will kill America. Which, quick side note I want to mention to Onision is that if you're going to try to demonize people, get the actual screenshots that say what you are saying that they said, if that makes any sense. Otherwise, it makes you look kind of ignorant when you say one thing that the person's saying, and then if people actually went to pause the video to see what they actually said and said something different, it just makes you look like an idiot. Now, the next thing I want to mention in my video, and this would end up having me go into a rant, was Onision starts saying that instead of people buying guns as weapons, start using swords. First of all, I don't think Onision has ever heard the phrase, "don't bring a knife to a gunfight." Because at this point, as much as, I'm going to say this because I collect swords myself, I enjoy the craftsmanship, and for a lot of them, they are on display at my house, but they aren't very useful when you have projectiles flying at you and immediately piercing through your body. So I'm pretty sure between the gun and the sword, when it comes to somebody who wants victory in a fight, the gun will prevail. But going past that, I actually want to go over the bigger issue when it comes to that statement that Onision made about people buying swords instead of guns. And I know said that I might wait on this particular topic, but you know, I'm going to say this. When it comes to pitting blame on the most recent, let's say the recent shootings and everything like that, the media, as well as people like Onision, like to pit the blame on something that is, at this point, irrelevant. Or at least, let me rephrase. Doesn't pit the blame on the thing that is the actual cause of these horrendous acts of violence. When something like this happens, they immediately go, oh, let's blame video games, let's blame TV, let's blame books, let's blame music. And when people like this go after the easiest thing to try to target or pin for these crimes, they don't look at the biggest factor, and that is the mental health or mental state of the individuals that are committing the heinous act. There are times when stuff like this would happen, I would try to listen in on the news, and usually it is never mentioned on the quote-unquote mental health of the individual. It's usually, oh, the person was violent, but he played video games, so that honestly means that the video games are to blame. Mental health itself is an afterthought when it comes to these situations. Look, this is just my personal opinion, but just understand, by the end of the day, if a gun isn't being used, you put it on a desk, it's a glorified paperweight. It's not going to get a mind of its own and start shooting people. The real issue when it comes to these crimes is the people who are so mentally unstable. And looking at the manifesto from the most recent shooting in New Zealand, the individual was obviously disturbed. And I think everybody can agree with me that the same goes for just about every other shooting or mass killing that has happened every year or in the past. Now, why do I bring this up, especially with the whole sword argument? Well, I'll tell you why. Because ultimately, if you take away, and I know in previous podcasts I mentioned all guns, which I should correct myself. It should have been assault rifles, but I will stand with what I said to an extent. If you were to ban guns, and I'm just going to say guns, that's not going to stop criminals from finding other means to get the guns to harm people. And those people who, let's say, are creative or, let's say, are very mentally ill will more likely find more and creative ways to harm somebody. As I mentioned in a post on Twitter that, or let me just summarize, human beings are very fragile. There are many ways for us to die. And a person creative enough will find many ways to die, even if they have to pull a spoon out of the drawer of their cupboard and then start killing you with that. Hell, people who are deranged enough could probably find a lot of the materials used to build bombs in their local hardware store. Now I ask you, when it comes to stuff like that, are we going to end up having to ban hardware stores because people found a way to build bombs? What about places like Walmart or any other stores that would sell, yard materials or tools and whatnot? Are you going to ban those? Look, final thoughts on the subject when it comes to Onision's video is Ultimately, I feel that Onision is not the spokesperson when it comes to these particular topics. And anything that he puts his hands on, so to speak, he ends up giving the wrong information or tries to spin it to stir or spew his own agenda. And let's face it, Onision has been doing this for the past 11 to 12 years. And ultimately, I don't think he's ever going to change on that. Now, I will say that when it comes to what happened in New Zealand, I know Onision would call me, unsupportive, but, I don't give a fuck. I try to do what I can, especially with, on occasion, when I try to give the cherries and whatnot, I try to do my part. And to everybody who lost lives or lost loved ones, my heart goes out to all of you. I really am sorry for your guys' losses. And I know for some people, when it comes to ideologies, there's some things I don't agree with. But ultimately, when it comes to lives being taken the way they are in these mass shootings or terrorist attacks or whatever you want to call it, a life is a life. And it is deplorable how their lives were taken, especially by an individual who is clearly unstable. So, I'm going to end it here. What are your thoughts? Because I know some people are going to disagree with me when it comes to the gun argument. That's fine. At one point, I want to talk to, or at least talk about it further, or at least just the whole gun thing in general. Talk about it on the podcast. If you guys have any thoughts or have any suggestions on topics to discuss, please feel free to leave it in the comments down below. I'm thinking if I'm going back to topic videos, I may go back to just the simple editing where I pretty much watch the video beforehand, kind of take notes on what I had problems with, and give you guys my responses. So, if you guys enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe if you're a newcomer to the channel. Thank you again. This is Rob from Novakast Studios signing off. Have a good one, and take care.